Hey everybody, Mr. Rachel here. In this particular video, we are going to learn what a graph looks like when it has a domain of all real numbers. Alright guys, in this video we're going to talk about how we read graphs that have a domain of all real numbers. So when the domain is all real numbers, what you're looking for is arrows that point in opposite directions. And I'm going to show you an example of what one of those looks like on this next slide here. So as you take a look at this particular graph that I made in green, you're going to notice that you have two arrows both pointing in opposite directions. That means that the domain is all real numbers. Notice that I could draw that graph without lifting my pencil off the paper there. So if I was going to say the domain of the graph and I was going to do in the different notations I've taught you, inequality notation would look like that with a big script R there because it's all real numbers. Set notation, of course, looks like that. And then interval notation looks like this. This is an example of a graph with a domain of all real numbers. Now I'm going to show you another graph. It's going to look different, but what you're looking for is you're looking for those arrows pointing to the left and to the right. And that's what we have here. And so that means that my domain is still all real numbers, even though this shape of this graph looks different from the other graph. The inequality notation is going to be the same. The set notation is also going to be the same. And the interval notation is also going to be the same. Remember, this is describing the domain of the function. The domain, of course, being the x values. And now I'm going to show you one more graph. Of course, this graph looks different as well than the first two, but we're just looking for those arrows pointing to the left and the right, and we got them. And because we got them, the domain of this function, of course, is all real numbers. So whenever you see those arrows on the end of the graph and you don't see any holes or anything in between the two arrows, we know that the domain is all real numbers. And of course my inequality notation, set notation, and interval notation are all the same when I'm talking about it. So I gave you three different graphs, but they all had the same domain, which was all real numbers.